Hey everybody, Cinephile Mike is here, and it is day 12 of Award Season Review Season 3, 97 reviews in 97 days, covering all the films contending for award recognition in early 2025. For these reviews, all of the information I'm giving you is current within 7 days of recording. I will be giving you the critical response, the box office information, insight into the film's awards run so far, my thoughts on predictions or nominations or wins as we go, and as always, these reviews are spoiler free. Also, make sure you check out my website, cinephilemike.com, for lots of great other award season content, including the ever necessary Where Can I Watch This 2024 spreadsheet, where you can track the winners and see how to watch all of the few hundred movies that are going to be vying for competition this year. So, we are just about done with our second theme week, Gotham Week. And this has been a big week in general with the Gotham Awards, the National Board of Review, the New York Film Critics Circle winners, the IDA winners, the ISA nominees, the Golden Globes are right around the corner. We're in the thick of it now. We're really starting to get going. So all the 7 films that I'm talking about this week were nominated for at least one or more Gotham Award and potentially several others. So, the Gotham Awards, for anyone who's not aware, is looking at recognizing all the best within the independent filmmaking community. And last year, 7 winners from the Gotham Awards all went on to either be Oscar nominees or winners last year. So it is a good predictor. Today, I am discussing Kino Lorber's Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat. This documentary about a fascinating chapter in our Cold War history was written and directed by Johan Grimenprez. The film, with some select screenings still happening as of this recording, has so far made $106,769 at the domestic box office and $45,956 at the international box office, for a take thus far of $152,725 and growing. Critically, the second highest film I have discussed this season thus far, with 40 critical reviews, Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat currently has a 98% critical score, but there is no audience score reported yet to speak of. This year's Gotham Awards, Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat was nominated for Best Documentary Feature, a category it is also nominated for at the Independent Spirit Awards, the International Documentary Association Awards, along with a nod for directing, and 2 wins the other night at the IDAs for writing for Grimenprez and editing for Rick Chobet. Winning the award for cinematic innovation and being nominated for the Grand Jury Prize in World Cinema Documentary at Sundance, the film also recently received 4 nominations at the Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, including Best Editing for Chobet and 3 Best of Documentaries in the categories of music, historical, and archival. So what is this one about? Well, at one point, someone states, "I think music can create the initial change in the thinking of the people." And that is so true to the message at the center of this epic 2.5-hour documentary. Patrice Lumumba more than made his impact on the world when he served as the first prime minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So much so that he only held the position for less than a year before he was assassinated. This is the unspooling of what Grimenprez's film unpacks for us. Not only the rise and fall of this man, but the multiple players that were embroiled in this often undiscussed chapter of the Cold War era and the controversy behind it. Told in a nonlinear story, Grimenprez fills the screens with archival footage and some readings of the various texts to tell the story of this time. We get a look at the fraught tensions behind the shift in the United Nations when newly independent African countries were allowed to join, and begin to shift alliances away from traditional colonial powers. New alliances are formed as the arms race is on, and materials are vast and limited to certain parts of the world. And as this is going on, interestingly enough, many prominent musicians of the time, primarily those black musicians who have worldwide acclaim, are brought into the fold to broker peace and show the general public that things are okay. We'll see how so many artists such as Louis Armstrong were sent to Africa as goodwill ambassadors to quell the fear and concerns. Meanwhile, other agenda items are turning that they were unaware of. The smoke and mirrors approach is often called out by voices such as Malcolm X, Dizzy Gillespie, and even Congo-based writer Nkoli Jean Bofane, whose book Congo Incorporated provides some of the context as he wrote about his time living and witnessing these events. Here's the thing. This film is both fascinating and, for me, frustrating. It's fascinating because the history behind all of this is quite a spectacle to behold. And there's so much that you want to invest the time in to get the basics understood, especially if you're unfamiliar with it. And that's where the frustration lies. Grimenprez assumes that the audience will have more than a basic understanding with the history, and kind of throws pockets of information out at different times on top of a film that almost plays like a jazz composition, to say nothing of the soundtrack of songs we hear from the likes of Armstrong, Gillespie, Nina Simone, Miles Davis. And this is where it gets a little alienating, because you're trying to understand the role Lumumba played while also look at what is happening in the UN, trying to understand the role these musicians served. I mean, look, Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat's editor, Rick Chobet, he had so many hours of footage to work with, and I think that's why the editing's been receiving the recognition it is. And one might almost wonder, would this have been better served as like a mini-series as opposed to an extended feature film that at times moves along and keeps you engaged, and then at others drags a bit too much when we get into some of the images and the archival footage? Now, there is some levity moments and absurdity, especially when we see some of the footage with Nikita Khrushchev and Dag Hammarskjöld, but these are just mere interludes as we try to follow to the next beat, which just might be that of the drum being played by one of the many impresarios that we have the joy to hear. Look, all in all, this is a fascinating lesson that unfortunately gets a little bit too lost in too much exposition and content. And, that's a little bit frustration. But I will say the film really does attempt to get the audience to think. And, we will see some of these struggles that they're having then tragically. This film is timely because looking at our current political circumstances, we can see we haven't made sometimes too much progression, and the film raises some of those questions. So, where could this film find itself come award season? Well, we'll find out in about 10 days when the Oscars releases their shortlist if Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat makes the documentary list. So we'll see if it lands there. Otherwise, I don't really feel that this one will enter other Oscar categories. I feel that as other awards make their announcements, Soundtrack could be a frontrunner because there's been a lot of positive word of mouth for the film. And, we'll see how it goes. Given the correlation between our current political climate, maybe it's going to be at the forefront of the discussion. Unfortunately, this week in Gotham Week, this film is a little lower rated for me. Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat is only a 3-star film. Again, I think it was a little too much and not, yeah. Look, if you would like to watch Soundtrack to a Coup d'Etat, you have a couple of options. One, if you are an IDA member, it is currently streaming on the IDA website through December 19th. There are a few screenings that are still happening, primarily in New York and Los Angeles. Should the film get nominated for an Oscar, there will probably be a few more screenings released. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. So, we're moving right along. 12 down, 85 to go. We're getting into this, and it's so much fun. If you like what you heard here today, please subscribe to the channel. Click the like button, drop a comment. Is there a movie you're hoping I talk about this season? Let me know. You can follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd. If you follow me on social media, you'll start seeing some polls next week to help me choose some of the films that I do. And again, don't forget to check out all the great content on my website, cinephilemike.com. Until next time, everyone, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.